Welcome to the D-Shift podcast, where we provide inspiration, motivation, and education to help you transition from the challenges of divorce to discover the freedom and ability to live life on your own terms. Are you ready? Let's get this shift started. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the D-Shift podcast. And I just want to thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to be here and listen. And we are going to talk today about a topic that if you are caring for elderly parents, or if you have elderly parents still with you, and bless you if you do. I lost my parents when I was very young, and I regret not having them to care for in my older age. But I do want to let you know that this is something that you're going to want to listen to. So my guest today is Nancy May, and she was, or in her past life, was a trusted leader and advisor working with CEOs on boards and people in leadership positions. And then she found herself in the role of caregiver for her parents. She left her corporate world job and made it her mission to help people to deal with the challenges of dealing with elderly parents, helping them to reduce the cost, and helping families not just survive, but thrive that role. Nancy has her own podcast called, and I want to make sure I'm getting in this correct, the Elder Care Success Podcast. And she's also author of the book, How to Survive 911 Medical Emergency. So Nancy, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much. This is just such a pleasure to be with you, Mardi. I want to add one little sort of correction there. I still do some work with those that are seeking their first public company board seat. I do some coaching there because, quite frankly, everything that I talk about in the elder care component of our lives impacts us in our corporate lives so much, more so than I honestly believe and know that corporations even understand. In fact, I had one show that I did, and I've heard others, and we've had these conversations where a CEO who is under the stress of caring for a loved one was stopped from committing suicide.
Yeah.
That's how bad it is.
Yeah.
It really is.
It's
tough.
It's a very real thing. And as medical costs and not hospice, but assisted living and nursing home facilities, as the cost of those things go up, more and more families don't have the option of, having a place where their parents can live that's a quality facility. So that's really what you do, right? Is you help people deal with all of the nuts and bolts of the whole process of keeping parents at home or finding facilities. What all do you do? Tell us a little bit about that.
So I would say what I do is really guide as sort of a trusted mentor and advisor through the whole process of caring for an aging parent. So bluntly put, I say, so you don't get screw glued and tattooed.
Yeah.
A little humor goes a long way.
Yeah.
And it's not just them, but it's us too. So we're dealing with the career work. How do you tell your employer? How do you ask for help when you need it? How do you manage the finances when you don't know what to do? Sure. Conversations with family members. More importantly, how do you have those initial conversations with your parents who may not even had those conversations with you and what they want? And then when it comes time that they do need your help, stepping in, doing this in such a way that is gentle and kind and firm, because we still need to be firm at times without being pig-headed.
Right. Absolutely.
And in a way that gets what they need done well so that they can live well respectfully.
Yeah.
And that you can do so yourself. Because if you become broken, you're no good to anybody else, including yourself.
That is such an important point. And I want to just throw in there, I actually am trained in elder care mediation, and I've done several. And it's really hard to do those mediations because you can really see that both sides of the coin, or whatever the argument is about how to care for mom and dad, or mom or dad, is that everybody involved, for the most part, really wants the best for their parents. They just have very different ways of understanding what the best looks like. So what do you see as some of the big issues that tend to come up, maybe that blindside people?
Yeah, this is a good question. I would say there's a variety of different things. I'll start first with the care facilities. Okay, I understand, and I don't blame people for helping a parent move into a care facility if that's what the adult children want, because they're afraid of what might happen. What what scares me is that they don't understand exactly how these businesses work and operate, and where it becomes a dark black hole, not just for them, but for their parents. Now, not all of them are like that, but how do you stay on top of things so that the best of the best happens?
Right.
And it's a very complex environment, and it's big business. And we put our trust in places that we don't we don't take the time to investigate.
Mm-hmm.
And that happens when, quite frankly, we're scared and are vulnerable ourselves.
Yeah.
And we just sort of like hold our nose and let's go in and hope for the best. But when somebody's life is at stake, would you do that to a child?
Right.
No.
Right.
But we do it to our parents.
Right. And you hit on something that's really important. These are not, well, some of them are nonprofit, but a lot of them are
But
for
not for profit
profit.
are not that much
Yeah.
better than others. Yeah,
Right.
I've seen.
Yeah, not for profit doesn't mean
I mean, it's
they're
good. No,
all,
no.
good Samaritans just giving, giving, giving. It just means they're in a different tax bracket. That's all it means,
Yeah.
really. But I was quite amazed because where I live, it's a smaller rural community, and it looks like they call them nursing homes still here, but they're really
Yeah.
assisted living, right? It doesn't matter, whatever you want to call them. But the facilities look like they're independent. But when you actually go in and start saying, hey, I want to speak to whoever is in charge of this facility, it's somebody sometimes not even in the United States that you're referred
Yep.
to.
Yeah.
So these are, like you said, this is big business now.
It's a huge business. Private equity is involved. Public companies are involved. Yes, the church and not-for-profit is involved. Smaller families are involved. It's really how to do the due diligence and look under, no pun intended, the covers.
Yeah.
And my background in the board work was so involved in investigation and what I needed to do for my clients and what they needed to do, that skill set has come in incredibly handy
Right.
for how this business works. And I explained to families and individuals that if you at least understand that this is a business first, then that gives you at least I wouldn't say a level playing ground, but a floor to start with, because they're not your best friends.
Yeah.
And that's how, they're sold like the Four Seasons and the Hilton, until all of a sudden, and the story that, my folks started out at $3,500 a month and it turned into $30,000 a month. And if I had left my parents where they were, and I'll back into that, they would have died. It was a $360,000 and growing bill a year.
Wow.
And that's not unusual. We think it's unusual, but it's not. And if I left them there, I have before and after pictures on an Instagram page that people would just not believe. If I had left my parents there, my mom would have been dead in 3 months. My dad probably 2 months thereafter, for fear of how to survive without my mom.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So, that's important. And, it's just, my parents went there and signed up for this service, this care facility, because they didn't want to be a burden to my sister and myself. And I greatly appreciate that. My heart goes out for them for thanking this to do that. And they weren't a burden, but it was overwhelming at times.
Sure.
And the fact that I was, I use the old network movie. It's like, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. And like,
Right.
I'm not going to let this happen to two good people who took care of me.
Right.
And so that's, I'm pissed as hell I'm not taking it anymore.
No, and that's
nor should anybody else, right?
Because
I've heard horrible stories.
Yeah. And one of the things that I know, and I'm not an expert like you are, but one of the things I know is that families should be regularly visiting and checking up and coming in at different hours. And, finding a way to talk to their loved ones that are in the facilities. And if the loved one doesn't seems reluctant to talk about things or has unexplained, if their room isn't clean when you walk in, if there's that odor, where they haven't been
Oh,
cared
that happens really
for,
fast.
and
Yeah.
it does. But it takes the family to be in there, because the senior quite often is not in a place to advocate for themselves. So it really means the family has to go in there. And like you say, you have to be the squeaky wheel. You have to complain. And if the complaints don't go to the manager, then ratchet it up, take it up to the next level.
And that may not even work because,
Yeah.
you talk about going in and visiting, and I saw families in the place where my folks were that visited regularly and came, but there's sort of like this blinders. You go on and you think grandma or mom and dad are fine, and you go and have dinner because and you're not comfortable there yourself.
Right.
So you don't know where to ask, you don't know what questions, and you see them dressed and clean, you hope, and everything else is going on, and they don't want to bother you, right?
Right.
Oh, everything is fine, everything is okay.
Right.
Or I did a podcast or a YouTube channel video that I call it the case of the missing finger. But it's a true story. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. I've heard this time and time again of body parts that get chopped off because of a small infection. I mean, a friend's dad started with a toe, a foot, a lower leg, and up to his hip. This case of the missing finger, a grandmother had a little tiny hangnail that turned into an infection,
Sure.
that turned into gangrene. They amputated her finger like months before she died. This poor woman was in pain for no reason at all,
Right.
whatsoever.
Yeah.
And don't blame the family, because the family just didn't know any better.
Sure.
Don't know what to look for.
Yeah. And the thing is I think a lot of times we as non-medical people, when the center we entrusted our loved ones with says this is what we had to do medically, we just kind of go, okay, that's what they had to do medically. Like you don't question most of us don't question a doctor. We just kind of go, okay, well, that must have been the only choice they had. But when
the doctor, the doctor is not a doctor. It's, somebody that's coming in, and oh God, the place where my folks were, there was, I refer to him as the, he was Quasimodo stutterer. Not that I'm complaining about stutters, but what is a medical professional who can't get hello out in 5 minutes doing with an older person who has sight, mobility, and hearing issues?
Sure. Makes
communication
really difficult.
I can't. No, not good. Taking blood like once every other week for what?
Right.
And then the contract, people don't understand what goes into these contracts. So I'm sort of on a mission to also help people understand the contracts and what they're signing on anything, on any level when it deals with medical care.
Right.
90% of us don't even read a contract. We just sign it.
Well, because they're designed to be unreadable. Let's face it. I mean, they're 45 pages.
Oh, I read them 85 and 95 pages long, right?
And different things. And if subsection C applies, then this clause doesn't. And it's crazy. Even the people that write them, I think, don't fully understand what the contracts are. They're so ambiguous that they could be read many different ways. Yeah. And I think that I'm going to say this from my perspective. So I'm not saying this from Nancy's perspective, but you may agree or not agree. I think there are some really terrific facilities out there.
Yeah.
They are some really caring. There's some big corporations that run excellent facilities. Unfortunately, there's a lot of facilities that are barely holding on with the state-run mandates, the inspections, the complaints, and quite depending state by state, there can be a huge or a very low bar of what's an okay facility. And even those state rating systems are pretty skewed, like depending on what state you're in, what could be a top level in one state wouldn't even barely make the minimum requirements in another state for a nursing home or assisted living facility. So,
well, and you have to understand too that something that is classified as a nursing home is also classified as a medical facility. If it's listed as a nursing home, that goes under federal guidelines. So you've got a certain level there. Care facilities, quote unquote care facility, independent, assisted, even memory wing is not a medical facility. So even attorneys, did a chat with another group of people a while back, and there was a doctor in there. She didn't even know that was the case.
Wow.
So they go under federal or under different guidelines and regulations, and you're a mediator on top of it. So if there's a mediation or dispute, that does not get out in the public.
Right.
That's hidden. So
Right.
you don't know. And most of these contracts are under, mediation clauses.
Right. Right. If they're not mediation, they're arbitration and they're sealed. So
even stuff. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's, I'm going to guess that a lot more goes on in that level than we know of from a public perspective. So you're really very difficult to
Right.
understand exactly what's going on.
And that's not just nursing home or care facilities. That's medical facilities, that's hospitals, that's your emergency clinics, everything's
heart surgeons
under sealed kind of stuff. So, so tell me a little bit, Nancy, about what do people do if they have a loved one, whether it's a parent or an aunt or an uncle or great grandparent or whoever it may be, in a facility, and their spidey senses are tingling and they're a little worried about what's going on in there, or they're not sure if something's going on there, but something just doesn't feel right. What's your recommendation for that?
Yeah. So the first thing is to be a PITA, pain in the you-know-what.
Okay. You can say it. You could say that word.
Pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Right. But, there's a way to be a nudge and have your voice heard so that you are, you get answers versus one that's just constantly complaining.
Right.
If you work to become part of the solution, then that's a step in the right direction. And everybody's situation is going to be a little different, but it's important to really figure out what's going to happen. If you're complaining enough, what's going to happen is your bill is going to go up and up and up
Right.
and up and up and up. And it's going to go probably well over $30,000. I mean, there's some places that I know of up north that start for independent at 20.
Right. Right.
So you have to really understand what's going on and figure out what is the solution to the problem that you have, and then work towards that solution. As I was thinking about something the other day, I said, really what we're all doing in elder care is we're starting with the end in mind.
Sure.
And if we don't start with the end, what is that last breath going to be?
Right.
What do you want for your loved one? What do they want?
Right.
More importantly, because if they want something different than you have to understand that and work towards that.
And I really liked, you talked about this way back at the very beginning of our conversation, was having that conversation with your parents while they're still able to articulate and explain and, have those conversations. And they're not comfortable, but it is really helpful to have them. We had another lady on the podcast, Beth Allison. She does coaching for people who are keeping their parents at home. And that's one of the things she said was the hardest thing to have with her parents, was that conversation about, what do you want? And they were both very clear. They wanted to stay home. They did not want to go.
Most people do. And my parents wanted to be in the care facility, not to be burdened to my sister and myself. Right. I took them out. We bought a house. We brought them back home. And it was the best thing that we did for both of them. They're physically, they just changed.
Right.
Totally. Financially, we were able to right side everything. Believe it or not. Everybody says, oh, it's less expensive to manage in a care facility. Not necessarily. It really isn't. I mean, it may be better or less expensive because they die sooner, but that's
well, and what I found out, unfortunately, I found this out through being a caregiver for my husband, was that you can, a lot of people think hospice is just for like a few days before people pass, or a couple of weeks.
They say it's 6 months, but you can go in and out of hospice.
As long as your doctor says you need, hospice is approved, if you can find a hospice that will do it, which there's typically not a problem to do that, you can have hospice care, and they are phenomenal people. Unfortunately, I found that out like 6 days before my husband passed. So they literally got the stuff in on a Monday and my husband passed on the Friday.
Yeah.
But, for those last 5 days, having
We're
that
angels.
hospital bed and the people coming in and out and helping me with the, all the stuff that's involved in that. But I have got to say, I think that a lot of these resources, people think there's only one option: keep parents at home and do everything myself, or put them in a facility. I'm just going to use that term, whether it's care facility, memory
Right.
care.
Right.
But there are options. There's
Yes.
adult, lots of places now have like adult daycare where
Yeah.
you can, they don't call it that, but it's really a place for seniors to go. They can play cards. They can, they do outings. They go to the mall, depending on, of course,
Like
capability.
going to the senior Y, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's just there's lots of, depending on where you live, again, but there can be some real opportunities. So, what do you say to people who say, when there's a family situation? I know we're almost out of time, but this is something that just breaks my heart when I hear this, where one person wants to keep the parents at home, one sibling, adult child wants the parents to go in a facility,
Mm.
and the parents have a home that they've been living in. So there's not just the issue about where mom and dad go, but now it's like who gets that property if mom and dad vacate that property. Um, oh, how do dynamics like that play in when you're talking to people?
You know, good question. Like I said earlier, really have to still start with what the parents want.
Sure.
And having those conversations early on. They don't have to be as difficult as you think they are. I was very fortunate growing up that my folks talked about this throughout our lives, ever since I was just a child, what would happen if something happened to them. And we'd had these conversations. My mom would say, if I get to a point where I become a vegetable, just shoot me. And my dad never really talked about it, but my father was a fight to the end kind of guy. So I knew what his wishes were. He was never giving up, because if he did give up, my mom would be left alone. And that's what scared him more than anything.
Right.
So we did that for dad. And when mom had a brain aneurysm, and I came down to immediately. I was down there within 24 hours, down in Florida where she was. The ER doctor said to me, so, they, first of all, they wanted to fly her out to do brain surgery. And I said, absolutely not. No, 91 years old, dementia, not happening. Not on my watch. Maybe somebody else's watch. My sister and I agreed. We had these conversations, not going to happen. So when we got to the hospital, the doctor said, and he was foreign, so the English translation didn't work too well. He said, what do you want to do? And I said, well, my mom always said if she got to the state, just shoot her. And he was like, no, we can't do that. So, you know, sometimes a little bit of humor goes a long way
Yeah.
in how you diffuse the conversation. But money hurts a lot of things. And if parents don't have those conversations early on to sort of say exactly what's happening, and you don't talk about them, then they
Right.
become more difficult. At the very least, try and figure out what's best for your folks. If somebody wants mom and dad to go into a care facility and the other person wants to keep them at home, figure out how that's going to work on either side.
Right.
Who's stepping in? Who's the POA? Ultimately, the POA is the one that has the yes or no. So
Right.
just like in business, co-CEOs don't work, co-POAs do not work.
And just for people that don't know, POA, power of attorney, that's the person that the individual has delegated to make either medical or financial decisions, or
Financial,
sometimes
yeah.
both, depending on where you are and what it's called. So
Correct. But ideally, if you're a parent that's listening here and thinking about your adult children and who you want to be the one to make those key decisions for you when you can't, please put one person in charge.
right.
Trust them, have the conversation, and if they can't do it or not comfortable doing it, tell them it's okay, and figure out how to make sure that the right person is being selected. It can be an outside party too.
Your attorney, sometimes the state attorneys will serve as POAs depending
Yeah.
on, what's
Financial
going on.
advisors are not
Yeah.
supposed to do that,
Right. Right.
but you can find a professional guardian
Yeah.
that will work, and then put in stipulation. You want that guardian to work in conjunction with your children.
Right. Yes, thank you, Nancy. That's a really good thing. And also, I'm going to encourage everybody, whatever your age is. We've talked about this with a couple of attorneys on the podcast. You need to have a will in there. You need to have
Absolutely.
your power of attorney designated. And if you are concerned
Medical,
about,
legal, financial
yeah,
directive. Yeah.
and you need to, if you want to have really clear stipulations on this, you need to have that living will that stipulates when and if resuscitation will happen and what how far you want medical services to go based on certain issues. And obviously, if you don't want it, you need to have a do not resuscitate order in place. And you can,
And if you're in hospice, they're not supposed to do that.
right.
So that's, and hospice, just I want to sort of circle back to the hospice conversation. Many people do not understand that the hospice organizations that are known as being not-for-profit are, most of them now, I think it's over 50%, are now owned by for-profit institutions. So that's helpful to understand that you actually have a choice in a larger community of which hospice organization you can go.
Right.
In the one that my parents were in, I asked, and they said, no, there's only one. So, make sure that you research them just as well, because it's a matter of personality and style and the team that you're assigned to. And if you don't like the team that you're dealing with in hospice, tell the institutional organization, this is not the team for me. We need somebody else. It's okay to change.
Yeah. That's great. And so we have covered a ton of information, Nancy. What would you think is the most important thing that you would like people to remember when they take out their earbuds and go on about their day about this?
I would say that you can do this. If you are caring for an aging parent, it is doable. You can do it well. You can do it with strength. There are going to be some bumpy roads along the way. That's okay. But the key is here, work with the end in mind, make every day count, not just for your folks, but for yourself too, because your health and well-being is just as important as theirs. And you don't want to live without any, actually, so you don't want to live with regrets after they're gone.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's so important. And this is, I know these are tough conversations to have. And I know it's not the most uplifting podcast in the universe or topic when we talk about this, but it is so important. And once you get this in place, these worries go away because you have a clear path, you have a clear plan. Your parents know you're in alignment with what they want, and it just takes a lot of the stress off. So,
and you can laugh and have fun with this.
Yeah.
I have a friend who, she's got like 5 or 6 kids, and she said, Nancy, I took your idea of how to talk about this end of life stuff. So they were all in the car going up to Vermont or New Hampshire somewhere. And one of the kids broke out their laptop and said, let's talk about this thing. What do you want? And they made a game out of it. Instead of like I Spy, like, seeing the license plates, they talk about what they wanted, and they laughed and they had fun. So you can do this in a way that is creative, it's engaging, and it's not doom and gloom.
Yeah.
It really doesn't have to be.
Yeah. Nancy, if people want to learn more about this topic or reach out and work with you, what's the best way to contact you?
Well, they can reach out to me on Facebook, Nancy May. I'm there. They can reach out to me. Caremanity is CareManity. Care and Humanity is also a page or a section that I have in Facebook. LinkedIn, I'm there. The Elder Care Success podcast, there's a page, eldercaresuccess.live. There's a link to get there and contact me. And on YouTube, which is also Elder Care Success.
Sounds
you want
great.
to do it well. You don't want to do it bad.
Exactly. I'm going to put all of that information in the show notes so that people can reach out to you. Nancy, thank you so much for being on the D Shift. You have really provided a lot of important information. So thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
And I'd like to thank everybody for listening into the podcast. And please take action on this. Nancy's got some really good perspective on this and something you don't want to leave and just let go. So take care. Thanks for listening in, and can't wait to see you tune in again next week. Thanks for listening and supporting the D Shift podcast. If you would like to attend live trainings by our amazing guests and have a chance to ask questions and get answers from our experts, join the D Shift crew. For more details and to sign up, head on over to www.divorcecoachforwomen and click on the podcast page.